This is your World War III update. I got to make this quick because I'm still a little under the weather. So here's what's going down today. So much is going on in the world in every area of responsibility. Let's first talk about this because you guys remember how I've been talking about how eventually there's going to be some sort of standoff in the Baltic Sea whereby a Russian shadow fleet oil tanker is going to be boarded by some NATO or Western military force, and that is going to be a potential flashpoint for hostilities. Well, it actually has happened today, okay? So the French, for the first time, boarded the Baltic ship. This is a Benin flag ship, but it's listed under UK and EU sanctions on Russia. So it's not a Russian vessel, and of course the Russians have not taken credit for it. As you can see here, French Navy has boarded this vessel. Now, this is all on the same day that France said they're going to be changing their nuclear doctrine, and they've been put on a high state of alert. The French Army chief warns of imminent high-intensity warfare readiness. The chief of staff of the French Army has issued a public statement indicating a need for readiness for high-intensity warfare as early as tonight. The statement is part of an effort to prepare the French public for a potential direct military confrontation with the Russian Federation. Recall, just a couple weeks ago, that report came out that the French are actually preparing for mass casualty events in 2026, as well as the Germans. And as I told you a few days ago, so are the United States. Now, this oil tanker is but one of up to 1,000 of these shadow fleet tankers, which continue to put Russian crude on the market. And right now you have this coalition of Western nations who are unilaterally and extrajudiciously trying to enforce this sanctions regime on these countries who they don't like. There's no international law to this. This is basically just France boarding a vessel it doesn't like in international waters because it has unilaterally declared that what they're doing is illegal. Period, point blank. Obviously, the Russians are going to probably deny that this is their ship, or they're not going to make a big deal about this particular instance. But the more this starts to happen, the tighter the noose is going to get wrapped around Russia's neck, because we already know that about 40% of their oil refinement capacity has been incapacitated. And that's thanks to events like this. Today, we had another refinery go up in smoke. This was actually about 24 hours ago now. So it's only a matter of time before, there's a red line in there somewhere. We just don't know where it is, right? Because Russia cannot sustain this type of attrition for very long before it really does become problematic for the domestic population and before the gas lineups become undeniable. So yeah, that's what's going on with respect to, that's the first ever instance of this happening where you have a vessel boarded by a NATO nation, a shadow fleet vessel. It has, I believe there's been ships that have been flagged before. I don't think they've actually been boarded. I know Estonia tried to do something once, but I don't think it was to the extent of this. In this particular instance, they've actually they've arrested 2 senior crew. So the captain and the deputy were actually detained, and they're claiming that the reason why, remember they're in international waters now, refusing the order to stop, failing to justify flag nationality. These are serious offenses, they claim, but they're also trying to implicate them in the mysterious drone disruptions that have been happening lately in and around Denmark and elsewhere throughout Europe. So they're trying to make the claim that these ships are being used to fly these drones, which of course I'm sure that these ships are so far away from shore that flying, especially quadricopter drones, it's just, you wouldn't be able to do that. They just don't have that kind of range. Maybe some of the military stuff does have that range, but either way, Europe is itching for a war. It's really neck and neck at this point in time. All things point towards war in the Middle East, as we're going to talk about in just a moment, but it's really neck and neck at this point. I mean, this thing could flare up in Venezuela, Ukraine, or Iran. It's really a dead heat right now. Now, here's what the U.S. has done today. I talked a little bit about this just to clarify. So before we get into the real meat and potatoes of this video, so France is going to consider revising its nuclear doctrine. So they want to be the new vanguard for this whole Europe versus Russia thing. So they're going to extend their nuclear umbrella to other nations. It's already a part of the NATO coalition and Article 5. But I guess they're going to take the lead and they're going to look into proliferation. So, you know, the era of non-proliferation is coming to an end, most likely. They're looking at strategic integration, and they may also change their first use policy as well. And the French do, albeit a much smaller amount of nuclear weapons compared to Russia, they do have a formidable nuclear capability. So if anybody is going to take the lead in Europe, it's got to be them more than it's going to be Britain. So big developments there. Now, with respect to what's going on with, where should we go here? Let's talk about, where is the story? Right at the beginning, right? Right here. Okay, so this is big. But I mean, it's really not big because they've been doing this since the start anyways. They're just now saying that they're doing it. They're now admitting that they're doing it. So effectively, we have the U.S. now claiming, okay, so this is according to multiple sources, you know, New York Times, Axios, in that realm of press, saying that the U.S. will provide Ukraine with intelligence to support long-range missile strikes deep inside Russia's energy infrastructure, marking the first time the Trump administration has authorized such targeting help. That's a direct quote from the Wall Street Journal. NATO allies are being asked to join. Targets will be refineries, pipelines, power stations. They've already been doing this. I'm of the belief, and this is not just a belief, this is the perspective of many seasoned military analysts who know far more about this stuff than me, that Ukraine isn't picking any targets inside Russia without the U.S. approval. And if they are, they of course have to answer to the U.S. if the target that they've selected is outside the parameters of what's been agreed on the back channel. So they're not doing anything that the U.S. hasn't already approved. Plus, they're probably using Starlink and AI technology that belongs to the United States. So this really doesn't change much, but there is one thing that might fundamentally change, and that is the delivery of Tomahawk cruise missiles, which have a range of up to 1,500 miles. And of course, there's no final decision that's been made yet, but this has now entered the discourse. So you recall, prior to the delivery of F-16s, there was this 2-year deliberation that occurred that preceded it, and it was waffling one way or another. And so I think because Trump is far more mercurial in nature, it's very likely that this decision could be made on a whim, and it could be made rather quickly, in fact, especially if they just want to use up a lot of their old aging inventory because they want to replace it with other stuff. Now, some people are saying, not going to be a big deal because, you know, Russia has an answer for this. These are subsonic missiles, so they're not hypersonic. They go slower so they can be perhaps shot down. I don't know if that's true or not. I know sometimes those things are a little overblown in both directions, but these are a nuclear capable platform through and through. In fact, that's what these things were designed for, okay? So this is a big game changer because you continually put more platforms and weapon systems that could potentially have non-conventional ordnance, which raises the stakes higher and higher, which is why Dmitry Medvedev is tweeting about nuclear war once again today. Okay, so that's a major development, that now the U.S. is openly providing intel for deep strikes. This is bigger than what Biden approved. Okay, and remember at the time, I talked about how, isn't it funny how Trump isn't disputing this decision, by Biden at the time to approve deep strikes. But at the time, what they meant by deep strikes was really, everything before Moscow. This is up to 1,500 kilometers. So this is everywhere. So now it's basically a green light on Russia. And you have this stranglehold being put on them in the Baltic Sea. You have the island of, what's that island called in the Baltic Sea? It's, I believe it belongs to Sweden. What's it called again, guys? It is, it just escapes me. What the hell is it called? Gortland? Anyways, it's one of those island fortresses in the Baltic. Apparently, there's anti-ship missiles being sent to that island, and it's being fortified in anticipation of a conflict because, of course, it would be used as a staging ground if there was shit that hit the fan with Kaliningrad. So, I mean, everything's lining up. This is looking really bad. The Russians apparently are even using new types of weapon systems because, get a load of this. Now, here you can see in the background, there was major blackouts because now they're really starting to hit these power plants. And this could have just been a missile strike on the power plant itself. It's hard to determine what it is, but it's a very strange looking explosion. Like it's a different kind of light. And most people are kind of calling attention to that. And almost instantly, the power goes out thereafter. So you can see there's this blackout thereafter in the streets. So that happens, and then there's a power outage. Not a complete power outage, but there's power disruptions. So I was doing a little bit of research, and as it turns out, there's something called the graphite bomb. This is intended to be a non-lethal weapon used to disable an electrical grid. The bomb works by spreading a dense cloud of extremely fine, chemically treated carbon filaments over air-insulated high-voltage installations like transformers and power lines, causing short circuits and subsequent disruption of electricity supply in an area or region or relatively small country. The weapon is sometimes referred to as a blackout bomb or soft bomb because its direct effects are largely confined to the targeted electrical power facility. So it minimizes collateral damage. And you're seeing this kind of intermittent flickering and disruption. And the lights appeared to go out even before those flashes hit. So it's hard to say what this is. It's speculation. I believe that was a U.S. weapon, but I'm sure that the Russians have their own version of the technology. So who knows at this point. Both nuclear power plants are on red alert right now. Chernobyl, blackout after Russian shelling, they claim. Energy infrastructure, new safe confinement on diesel generators that they're working on. So that one should be okay. But apparently Zaporozhye risk is escalating. If the blackout there persists, they have a backup generator with fuel that lasts about 10 days. I can't see the Russians wanting there to be a radiological situation happening in Zaporozhye at this point in time. It wouldn't serve their interests whatsoever, especially considering they control the nuclear power plant. If anybody, that's going to be the Ukrainians who would benefit from that sort of situation. So apparently the IAEA has been informed, and if I'm not mistaken, Grossi had just met with Putin not too long ago, which is interesting as well. There was 2 Shahed drones that transited Belarus into Volyn towards Poland. Poland scrambled 6 F-16s, additional F-16 patrols across Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. So in addition to the massive bombardment that happened just the other day that I didn't even report on because it's so commonplace nowadays, it's like, what's the point? I can't remember. It was 650 drones, 60 missiles. It was the 3rd highest amount of ordnance dropped on Ukraine by the Russians since the war began, and all of the top 50 of those have happened this year on Trump's watch, for the record. So there's been multiple drone incursions reported throughout Europe. It's hard to say if these are, copycats or what this is, or if this is just confirmation bias, but nonetheless, NATO is setting up the precedent for some greater intervention. And the consensus is that they're going to put troops on the ground, and they're wanting to keep it at the conventional level. But as France is saying today, they are willing. Everything is on the table, including thermonuclear Armageddon, apparently. So, I mean, this shit's just getting out of control, man. I mean, I didn't even want to make a video today because I'm sick as a dog. But I know if I don't do this on a daily basis, so much of the news cycle will escape that it won't be on the record. So we got to kind of keep up with things here. Now, Russia, this probably would have been a headline story the other day, even though it's a regular occurrence in Russia. Let's make sure my audio is good there. Okay, so this is I think I've probably done this 2 or 3 times over the last 3 years, but this is Russia's annual nationwide emergency alert test, basically preparing for, this is what would happen if a nuclear bomb was inbound. Now, Ukraine has these sirens as well. I don't know if we have these sirens in American cities. I doubt it anymore, but I could be mistaken about that. Just another, data point to know that Russia is fully prepared. They've done all kinds of nuclear nationwide readiness drills. They did a big one back in 2023 where they're putting all the kids in gas masks and simulating, literal Mad Max conditions. So they're getting ready, and I can't say we're doing the same. They have to be because, of course, 40% of their refinement capability has been knocked offline, and that's really, most of that's in the last 6 months. So people who say it's no big deal, just, extend it forward another 6 months. Even if they only get another 20%, 60% refinement offline is massive. You're talking about widespread diesel shortages and gasoline shortages. That's really going to put the pinch on the war machine that relies on diesel, okay? So despite these strikes, their seaborne oil exports have increased proportionately, which is not surprising because if you can't refine the oil, you're going to try to sell it on the global market. So that's what they're doing. And this is why I think we're partly seeing oil suppressed. The price of oil is largely subdued, especially when compared to gold, which rocketed to $3,915 last night. I don't even know what it is. It might hit 4,000 before, the weekend at this rate. It is just batshit crazy at this time. But I think that that's part of the reason why oil is subdued. Warren Buffett is making a big bet on Occidental Technologies. I believe they're like a petro-based chemical company, and I've invested in them in the past. And if he's making an investment in that, then I think that means that we're going to see, the oil spike is coming. Oil is just incredibly undervalued. The gold to oil ratio right now, I don't think it's probably close to all-time lows. I shouldn't say that, but it's really cheap. Like the amount of oil you can buy with 1 ounce of gold right now, that's the oil-gold ratio, oil is dirt cheap. And it's way cheaper than it should be, considering all the data centers are sucking up all the energy. So while a lot of the data centers are relying on other, sources of power plants, oil still factors into that, and many places do actually use oil for electricity generation. So it's only a matter of time before that energy price increase makes its way into oil, I suspect. The demand is growing and, so it's only a matter of time. Oh yeah, the government in the U.S. shut down, and there's guys having street battles in the streets with protesters and whatever you want to call it. And that whole meeting at Quantico, this is all just weird, isn't it? There's so much going on. Like, it's incredible, really. So apparently some people are not getting paid. I have a sneaking suspicion that Trump will make it his top priority to make sure that the military gets paid. In fact, I think he said as much at the meeting yesterday at Quantico. But I got some messages today from some people who are saying that they have friends who are in the service who haven't been paid yet. Maybe it's just been delayed, who knows? But all of these websites you're seeing, due to a lapse in federal funding, information will not be actively managed. Due to the government shutdown, the social media page is not being updated, etc., etc. So you have a blackout from the government, okay? And now you have the government slapping these NDAs on everybody. Widespread polygraphs, NDAs to staunch leaks Thousands of uniform and civilian officials will be required to sign non-disclosure agreements and take lie detector tests as Defense Secretary Hegseth ramps up the war on leakers. This comes after that Pentagon gag order where they want the reporters to agree not to report anything that the Pentagon tells them not to report. So, I mean, they're clearly setting us up for something massive. I mean, all the signs are there, guys. This is just incredible. I mean, look, it gets really exciting in a way that is not good, but at the same time, we have to enjoy life, right? So try not to get, try to just, what am I trying to say? Try to enjoy life as much as possible, as much as you can, because the world as we know it could change instantly, and these will be referred to as the good old days. That's why I do these videos, even if I'm sick, because I know that the day's going to come when I'm going to look back and I'm going to be like, yeah, it was challenging, but I wasn't eating rat tails and staying up all hours of the night because I'm worried about getting jumped by a bunch of desperate, hungry, cannibalistic marauders. So this ain't that bad. I'll take this any day of the week, doing these videos sick where I can barely keep my eyes open and barely talk properly. This is a walk in the park. So just try to enjoy it too. Enjoy the stop and smell the roses and all that good shit. Bricktop NAFO. Okay, so these are the guys, who go on the social media platforms. They're all anonymous, and they are all trying to start nuclear war, essentially. So here's what this guy has to say, and I'm not sure why I zoned in on this tweet. This guy blocked me, probably because, I don't know, I maybe dissed him in the past or something. I probably said something critical of what they're trying to do. Putin wanted to take Ukraine, and because of that, he will not only lose Russia, but also his life. Okay, so let's just get something straight. If Putin dies, there's a nuke getting dropped. There's no doubt about that. And even if Putin dies and a nuke doesn't get dropped, the guy who takes his spot will drop the nukes. Why do you think Medvedev is second in command? He is the deputy, would it be the deputy chief of the National Security Council. Who's the chief of the National Security Council? Putin. So Medvedev has the nuclear codes, and he's the guy who's always talking about using nukes. So these guys seriously think that you're going to take out Putin and it's not going to go nuclear? Are you crazy? Things are going to get so bad for Russia, they will take him out themselves. And this is where I think people get really delusional, because we don't know bad. I mean, back in World War II, that was bad. Imagine what Stalin had to deal with, where he had the Germans literally just miles outside of one of the biggest cities in Russia and almost, basically took over the country. And so things can get really, really bad in these countries as long as you have a chain of command. I mean, you can hang in there for a long time. I mean, even Nazi Germany hung in there for quite a while, right? So I think they perhaps underestimate Russia's ability to endure. But again, I'm not like one of these people who's like, oh yeah, you can just destroy Russia's economy and they'll just brush it off as a nothing burger. There's going to be effects. And then he goes on to say Russians better strap in because their lives are going to get even more desperate than ever before. Well, the last I checked, Russia has all the food they'll ever need. They have all of the energy they'll ever need, with the exception of the refineries, that I'm sure they'll find a solution for that at some point. They already have nets erected. They have air defense, which is scarce, but they'll find a way to, triage all that stuff and prioritize. But Russia has the resources that Europe wants. If anybody's going to be desperate in the future, it's going to be Europe, which is why they want Russian resources, right? So anyways, that's what's going down. So, yeah. So what's going on in the Middle East? Okay, so Qatar, just out of the blue, signs a strategic agreement with the United States today. A strategic agreement with the United States. So basically this means it's not a strategic mutual defense pact, which means that if they get attacked, which is funny because Israel just attacked them, the United States will come to their aid. Now, I don't know if Qatar is just, well, I don't know what they're smoking to actually believe. I don't think this agreement is worth the paper that it's written on. I think it's just so that they
can build back their trust. And of course, they understand that Qatar will likely be used as a staging ground for operations against Iran, and thus they'll be attacked by Iran. And so this basically is the US's casus belli, clear cut to go to war. There's all kinds of perspectives on what's going to happen with a war in Iran. Iran is starting to roll out the missile silo videos once again, as you can see here. I can't remember the quote that was on this, but something about, the limitless Persian arrows that will black out the sun and this type of thing. Yeah, but I mean, we seen last time was that just a warm-up, or are they really going to go all out this time? The problem is that they don't have escalation dominance, which means that as soon as they started to win against Israel, then Israel's going to use a nuke. And the international community is going to be like, oh, that's bad, and there's going to be protests. But at the end of the day, and remember what Zhirinovsky said, that Russian political pundit, he said that the horrors that we see in Iran are going to happen in and around this time, 2024, 2025, and they're going to make what we see in Ukraine and Russia seem like a cakewalk. So it's not going to be good. I think Iran's only potential way out of this is getting some sort of nuclear defense pact, or getting under the nuclear umbrella of the Chinese and the Russians. I don't know if that's going to happen, because it seems like the Russians are trying to ensnare NATO into a quagmire inside Iran to kind of bog them down so that they can basically take attention away from the Ukrainian front, and that this is the bait that Putin is dangling. Now, based on what I've heard, they've been shipping a lot of equipment. The Russians actually have been shipping a lot of equipment to the Iranians. There's speculations that these are MiG-29s? It could be fighter jets. It could be air defense. It's one of those two things. Nobody knows what it is. And this, of course, is being matched in Israel, where they're getting more THAAD systems. I think they have a significant amount of the U.S. THAAD systems available. So they have the Iron Dome, you have the David Sling, the Arrow system, you have the THAAD. Everything's all set to go. Like this is, ticking time bomb. Everybody I talk to thinks that the war with Iran is going to start in 2 weeks. In fact, the guest we had on yesterday, Professor Zhang from Beijing, go check out the video on the Canadian Prepper channel. He thinks that it's 1 to 2 weeks it's going to start. So, you have the Gerald R. Ford, USS Gerald R. Ford heading there through the Strait of Gibraltar right now. You have a massive military buildup in that direction. You have Boeing awarded $123 million to replenish the 14 GBU 57 massive ordnance penetrators. So they're going to try to use those again. Are they going to be nuclear this time? Who knows? You have B-2 bombers allegedly in the Middle East. We know we've seen a couple of those in Europe the other day. Unconfirmed reports emerged that the Pentagon has deployed 2 B-2 strategic bombers in the Middle East. This move followed Netanyahu's visit to Washington for talks with Trump. Now, the Iranians are claiming that the ceasefire with Israel could collapse at any moment, potentially leading to a renewed series of U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iranian territory. And they are saying that they've named numerous successors in case of another decapitation strike attempt. I don't know if that's the greatest strategy, or if that's going to be enough, because I know Hezbollah had a very similar strategy and they don't seem to be doing much. Mind you, you never know. Maybe the Axis has some tricks up its sleeve. All the while, we have a nuclear exercise being run in the United States with 6 U.S. Navy E-6 airborne nuclear command posts and communications relays currently airborne over the United States. This was a few hours ago, so this news is a little bit dated. In Venezuela, or in Puerto Rico, I should say, there's also a massive military buildup. This is why I'm saying, like, this shit could just pop off at any moment. Like, this is day X written all over it. So in Southcom, okay, Puerto Rico, we have 8 F-35s. We have 2 Ospreys. We have a KC-130. And we have all these warships and all that kind of stuff. That's just what we're seeing right in here. So, you know, there's a massive buildup in Puerto Rico as well. I'll get the exact numbers on that for tomorrow's episode. I can barely see straight right now. So not to self-handicap, guys, but really I've been struggling with this illness, but it's all right. We'll get over it. We'll be fine. Okay, so in South Korea, they're not ignoring the Eastern Theater. Everybody's sleeping on Taiwan, okay? Taiwan, apparently the U.S. told them that, hey, you need to move 50% of your chips to the United States or else we're not going to protect you. Well, that's kind of a catch-22, right? Because if you move your chip manufacturing, what incentive does the United States have to protect you if you can now make the world's most advanced semiconductors in the United States? So Taiwan's in this really tricky situation. They're saying, we're not going to protect you, and they know the United States can't be trusted. I mean, we've completely lost all soft power around the world. So, I have a sneaking suspicion that, China could take Taiwan without even taking a shot. I think there's an old proverb about that. How about you sit by a river long enough and the body of your enemy will float by eventually. Okay, so this is Sora 2, okay? And this, our time is so limited. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. Like this guy right here, this bot, this NAFO guy, I don't even know if this is a real person. This could be bots. For all we know, this is how Skynet is going to subvert the human race and start Judgment Day. They're going to create a bunch of bots, and they're going to start a nuclear war just through this online polemical rhetoric. And take a look at this. This blew my mind when I seen this. Now, I'm pretty sure, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure this Sora 2 is, this is OpenAI, and this is a 1-minute clip. Apparently, this is from a prompt. So typically, you can do 8-second prompts. And I think I've showed you guys some stuff that we've done with VO3, which was a product from, who is that? Is that Google? I think that's DeepMind. Yeah, that's Google. We've been using that for some of our videos on the Canadian Prepper channel, but this is a whole other level. Okay, this is really, truly terrifying stuff. I mean, Hollywood is not long for this world, and for some people, that's probably a good thing. But let's just watch this, okay? Because this is incredible. This is from a prompt. Okay, you type something into AI. If you don't know much about it, it spits out a video. Okay, this guy doesn't exist.
They said I was the face of finance, but I'm more than just a pretty face. When Ramp reached out, it was clear they needed my accounting experience. Go for Brian.
Brian, look, we hired you as our spokesperson, not a CFO.
No, don't ruin this for me.
Brian, hello?
They say it's all automated now. Invoices, expense reports, and other stuff. But no automation can replace the human touch.
So real.
It's obvious Ramp needs someone.
Now there's going to be somebody there, nitpicking at all the minor imperfections. Just remember, it was only like 2.5 years ago that Salvador Dali-esque Will Smith eating spaghetti video came out, and it was a meme where it looked like, like demons having some weird, illustrative orgy. That's what it looked like. Now it's indistinguishable from real life. And this isn't even the high point of the technology. This is what they give us. And if you don't think they're withholding the best, I have heard reports from credible insiders that indeed part of the reason why OpenAI doesn't want to share its real AI with the world is because it would cause its competitors to potentially be able to use that against them. So they're not going to give you the best. If they create AGI or super AGI, they're not going to give it to us because why would you empower everybody? They're not going to do that. So this is getting scary, man, because consider that if we do go to day X, World War III, how are you going to know what you're seeing is real? How are you going to know it's Trump hasn't been taken out and they haven't just put some guy up there? Because they can do that now. They can do that now, like to a point where it's almost undetectable. And again, this is not the state of the art, and this is a character that, you know, hasn't had thousands of hours of video footage that the AI could train on. You could train an AI on somebody like Trump, like a public figure, and it could get it to a point where it was indistinguishable from reality, probably look realer than the real thing, imperfections and all. So yeah, there's actually a show on Netflix that me and my son have been watching. It kind of got stupid towards the end and weird, but it's called Billionaire Bunker or something, and it's this, I don't want to ruin it, I don't want to spoil it, but watch it, okay? Because it's all about AI and these people who are in the apocalypse, okay? I don't want to spoil it, but you should watch it because there's some prophetic stuff in there as well. Anyways, guys, I'll leave you with a Medvedev quote. This is Medvedev in response to Trump's statements about the nuclear submarines yesterday. New episode of the thriller series, Nuclear Subs, for posts on X. Trump once again brought up the subs he allegedly sent to the Russian shores, insisting they're very well hidden. As the saying goes, it's hard to find a black cat in a dark room, especially if it's not there. My friends, don't get sick like me. Make sure you get your Jace medical kits through the description below. You can now get actual trauma kits that doctors and first responders have created for the sole purpose of surviving in a grid down situation. And of course, you can get your antibiotics and all that other stuff. It helps support the channel. We still have our 25% off sale at CanadianPreparedness.com. The warehouse is getting very thin, unfortunately. And it's kind of sad to see, but at the same time, you know, I know that this is something I have to do in terms of taking this channel and Canadian Prepper to the next level. So don't worry, we're still gonna do all kinds of gear reviews. I have about 10 videos in the queue that I've yet to release on Canadian Prepper just because, you know, timing and everybody's fixated on what's going on. So yeah. Anyways, guys, take care.